Hi, everyone. My name's Jessica Lutzker. I'm an HBS alum, and I also work in the admissions office, and I'm so happy to have you all here today. We have three women who are in their second year at HBS here with us, and we have a lot of questions. Thank you so much for being so thoughtful and for sending in all those questions, and we're going to try to get to everything that you asked in the next hour that we have together. Before we do that, I want to give you a brief overview of HBS. We have a 2-year full-time general management MBA program. So we did get a lot of questions about online learning and part-time programs. Those are not part of what we're going to be talking about today. The students are going to talk a little bit more about the curriculum and how that runs. But a couple things you're going to hear about today are the case method. That's a really important part of the way we learn here at HBS. You're going to hear some acronyms like required curriculum, which is the first year. Everyone does the same thing in the first year. And then EC, which is elective curriculum, which is the second year. We have a residential campus here in Boston, and about 65% of our students live on campus. And they'll talk a little bit about what they do when they're in the classroom and when they're out of the classroom. We have 930 students in each class, but in the first year, those students are divided into groups of 93, which form a section. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. HBS has a really robust alumni network. We have 83,000 alums in 170 different countries, and those are alums of our MBA programs as well as our executive education programs, which are on campus. And 15,000 of those are women, so that's a pretty amazing group of women who offer support to our students. We'll talk a little bit about the field program, which is part of our curriculum, and then we'll touch on how people have thought about their job searches and what they're doing after school. So with that, I want to get started, and we're going to meet the students. Okay, great. So thank you for coming today. And can you all introduce yourself? Layla, I'll ask you to start.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Layla. I am from New Jersey. I went to Howard University for undergrad, and but prior to HBS, I worked in a couple of different industries. First in the industrial space, so I worked in general management for an industrial distribution company. I then transitioned to financial services and worked for Goldman Sachs in human capital for 3 years. So I focused on succession planning and diversity and inclusion work there. In my second year at HBS, along with these two lovely ladies, and I'm involved with a lot of really exciting things here. So I'm sure we'll get to talk about that as well.
Great.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Dalsha. I am Brazilian. I'm from São Paulo. I studied economics at the University of São Paulo, and prior to HBS, I worked 3 years as a consultant at a German company called Rollenberger, and then I worked 3 years as an internal consultant at Bayer, the pharmaceutical industry. And before coming, I had a brief experience as a brand manager in Brazil, managing the Coppertone brand.
Great. Hi, my name is Kaylee Cloran. I'm from Vancouver, Canada. Before HBS, I worked for General Electric, primarily in sub-Saharan Africa. I worked on major infrastructure projects, and then I got to dabble in some global health work as well. And I'm excited to be here with these ladies today.
Great, thank you. So let's think about kind of your path to the MBA. So Layla, how did you know when you were ready to apply and leave the role you were in prior to business school?
Yeah. So as I mentioned right before business school, I was working in a human capital role, and I loved my job. I loved my team. It was a really enjoyable experience. But I think the moment for me where I knew that I was ready is I was actually up for my next promotion, and I didn't really want it. And that was kind of a sign to me that I needed a different set of experiences, whether it was either at another company or in a graduate program. Ultimately decided that going to grad school was the right fit for me, because I was really in this place where I wanted to explore, and I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted out of my next role, but I knew it wasn't at the company that I was currently working at and in the same function as well. So despite the fact that I really enjoyed what I was doing, I recognized that, if I didn't really have the drive to seek the next, sort of level at my job, or if I didn't see myself really like represented in the folks that were already in those positions, then it was probably time for me to consider something else.
Did anyone have anything different or any other thoughts as you thought about when to apply?
Yeah, I think in my case, I was at Bayer and I was starting managing some people, but I never had the time to really reflect about my leadership style and what are my strengths and weaknesses as a leader. So I wanted to have like a time as soon as possible in my career to reflect on that before I start leading bigger groups.
What made you choose HBS, Rebecca?
Yeah, I think the case method was something that I decided to pursue because it's very out of my comfort zone. So as a not native English speaker, speaking in front of 90 people is a little bit scary, but I also wanted to use MBA to to do like my personal growth. So the case method was something that was really interesting for me. So I came to HBS to visit the class and I was impressed by the debates, the discussions, and how can you really absorb the learning when you're doing a case method. So this was reason number one. And the second reason was the section experience because I came to the US and I didn't just want to make a network, I want to make friends. And I think if you have a group of 90 people that you really live with them like every single day, you can really make true connections. So I was very excited to having a section and I can confirm it was very, very nice. I really enjoyed the experience.
That's great. And any fears or reservations about getting an MBA?
Yeah, I think for a lot of us, it's a bit daunting. You hear a lot about Harvard Business School, especially throughout the application process. You take the GMAT. It can sometimes be a daunting experience. I think you expect the academics to be extremely challenging. And although they are not easy, I think that the admissions committee does an extremely good job of making sure that they've selected you for your particular skill set, and you have to figure out what that is throughout the year. But you figure out that you do have something very unique to add to the case discussions. I think you do find your place and you realize you have a valuable skill and you can also learn from your peers. And then in addition to that, if you don't come from necessarily a quant background or a business background, there's a lot of preparation activities you can do throughout the summer that they provide you. So there's a bunch of different core courses. I recommend them. But you really are set up for success, and there's access to different tutors. The professors are very open to speaking with you, so the academics are definitely manageable.
That's great. And Rebecca, can you talk a little bit about financing the MBA? Because I know that's a big fear for a lot of people who are on the other side of the camera.
Yeah, so especially coming from another country where the currency is undervalued, financing my MBA was one of my things I was worried about because I didn't have a company sponsoring me. But I was very impressed by the HBS financial aid because it's not merit-based, it's need-based. So it is very customized to your needs. So it helped me a lot, making sure I could come here with peace of mind, knowing that I could finance my MBA, enjoy the experience, and then think about it and spread the financing across the years was also something that helps me a lot here.
That makes sense. Layla, can you talk a little bit about the curriculum at HBS? I sort of touched on it briefly, but if you could sort of walk through how HBS is structured, that would be great.
Yeah. So in the first year, as we already mentioned, everybody does the same thing. And so one of the first things that happened is that you are assigned your section. And so your section is comprised of about 90 or 93 or so people from all different walks of life, all over the world, all different backgrounds. And so that becomes your family essentially for the year. All of your classes take place in the same classroom, and you'll have, I think, 5 in the fall and then another 5 classes in the spring. The structure of the actual classroom experience, as we've mentioned, is the case method. And so a good way to understand the case method is you're essentially studying a business problem from the perspective of the person directly dealing with that issue. It could be the CEO, it could be the head of marketing, it could be the CFO. And the courses are designed for you to put yourselves in that person's shoes and come prepared to class every day with a perspective on how you think that person should solve that particular problem. In terms of materials, the case method is all based on case studies. And so at the start of the year, you'll receive all of or most of your cases for the entire year or the entire semester rather. And so your preparation for class is largely going to be based on those individual case studies for each class. Every class is usually on a different company, a different problem, a new protagonist. One of the cool things about the case method here at HBS is a lot of the case protagonists actually come visit the classroom. And so you'll spend the first, half of the class talking about your different perspectives on the issue, and then spend the latter half hearing from the actual person who made the decision themselves, which is pretty cool. Another really interesting part of the case method, which you sort of alluded to in terms of public speaking skills, is it really forces you to engage with everyone else in the room. And there might be times where people agree with your points and people don't agree. And that's part of the education process, is recognizing that there are multiple different approaches for solving business problems. And hearing that sort of intellectual diversity in the classroom is really important. So each day you'll leave that particular class or case with several different approaches, several different responses, perspectives on that particular issue. And I think that's really valuable versus you kind of keeping your head down and coming up with your approach alone, or learning something from a textbook. Like, you're learning with your professor, you're learning with your peers, and it's a really collective and enjoyable experience.
Um, actually, Rebecca, can you talk a little bit about field and that part of the experience?
Yeah, the Field Foundation is the course that we have in the first semester that helps us creating these interpersonal skills. And we also have, you mean the FGI, the trip, or more?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's for me, it was one of the best parts of HBS. So it's, you have a group and you work in a project, a design thinking project for an external organization in another country. So in my case, I went to South Korea and I spent 10 days there with my group. And first, like, the design thinking process is very interesting. So I really learned how to use it and apply it in real life. So I think the learning was like real for me, because I not only learned at classroom, but I really apply it. And going to another country, experiencing another culture was something very special. And having also the support from HBS to have also contact with students in Korea. We also had contacts with professors there. So it was very enriching for me. And also making friends from other sections was very nice too.
Kelly, where did you go for field?
I also went to South Korea.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Where did you go?
I went to Tanzania. So my FGI section was in Dar es Salaam, and it was really cool to be in an emerging market for that experience. And I would echo a lot of what you've said. I'm still very close with the friends I've made. I'm actually having dinner with them tonight,
Nice.
which is really cool. But our client was actually based in Zanzibar, and so much of the 10 days we spent there was traveling back and forth via boat to get to the customers and clients in Zanzibar.
What was the project?
So the project was, we were basically helping a salt company. And so in Zanzibar, one of the issues that our founder that we were working with was trying to solve was the lack of iodized salt in local dukas or markets in Zanzibar. And so the lack of iodized salt presented a lot of different health issues in the community in terms of different conditions that result from iodine deficiencies. And so what we were trying to do was introduce a product into the market that wouldn't necessarily change the habits of consumers there. And so part of our design thinking process was a lot of customer interviews and learning about what their normal habits were like. And what that involved is us literally going to the markets and walking side by side with local people, saying like, hey, why did you purchase this kind of salt versus that kind? And really understanding what people's perceptions were of local goods versus imported goods, and people's reactions to different brands or health advisory statements or things like that. And so ultimately what we did is come up with a brand name, a go-to-market strategy, and really just a bunch of different, recommendations for our founder in terms of how to engage with the community there based on what we learned from the people that we spoke to. And it was a really incredible experience. I don't think I ever would have gone to a place like that on my own, which, it changes your perspective, I think, a lot, and has made me more interested in emerging markets, in direct to consumer businesses, and learning a little bit more about different health related issues that impact business in those parts of the world as well.
That's great. Callie, really quickly, can you tell us what second year courses you're taking?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm in one course that's cross-registered, which is an interesting thing you can do at HBS, and it's with kind of like the public health, the law school, and all the other schools. And essentially, we're creating a business plan to tackle a major issue that we've kind of all come together to select. So we're looking at kind of malaria in sub-Saharan Africa. And then to complement that, I'm also taking a bunch of different entrepreneurship courses here at HBS. I'm taking Founder's Journey. It's really interesting where you kind of look through the lens of a bunch of different founders, and they come in class and kind of talk about some of the emotional aspects of being a founder and how tough it can be. And I'm sure some people on this call are founders, so congrats to you. And then I'm also taking public entrepreneurship at HBS, and this is looking at it in terms of how do people disrupt the public sector through different entrepreneurial initiatives, whether that be from the private sector or from the public sector. And I'm also taking a few other courses that I don't know if you want me to go through all my classes.
Just to give people a taste of some of the things that you can.
Yeah, so I mean, I've highly indexed on entrepreneurial courses because I'm quite interested in this. But you can also take obviously a variety of different finance courses. Some of the folks have found various courses in private equity extremely useful for what they're going to be doing post career. I've kind of focused more on some of these qualitative courses this semester.
Yeah, that's okay. So Rebecca, you talked a little bit about kind of the case method and the opportunity to speak in the classroom, and that was sort of a reason why you chose HBS. How have you experienced it? And do you feel, do you feel good about your choice to, go to a school that really uses a case method? And do you feel like being a woman has impacted how you feel in the classroom? That question comes up a lot.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy with the decision. I really enjoyed the case method, but I must say in the beginning is not easy because you have to adapt in speaking to a big public. Also, for me, I have a hard time saying something when I'm not 100% sure. And here you have to learn how to speak when you're like 75% sure, because the cases, they don't give you all the data you need. It's not going to give you all the context. So for me in the beginning, it was very hard to raise my hand because I wanted to have a very clear point of view before doing that. But I think the women community in my section was very strong. So they gave me a lot of support. So for example, my seatmate, she was amazing. And like in my first comment, she was like reinforcing me and saying like, this was a great comment. I really learned with what you said. And that was like, started giving me more confidence to start risking more and start like talking more at class. And I also had a comment buddy that was another woman in my section. So after every class, we got together and then we gave feedback to each other about her participation. So I think like our women in the section are very like close together and collaborative to make sure everyone is participating and that we have equal participation between men and women, and that everyone feel included to contribute. Because this is the beauty of the case method. If you stay quiet and you don't bring your own point of view, this is not nice. Like we want to hear everyone's voices and experiences, can be from different industries or different countries. This is what makes it, I think, a very nice way of learning.
That's great. Callie, have you found any mentors at HBS or anyone who you've gotten great advice from or particularly connected with?
Yeah, so one of the things I'm involved in at HBS is the healthcare club. And I didn't come from a healthcare background, I was really interested in switching into this. So I participated in something called our doctor shadowing program, where I had an opportunity to kind of leverage all the amazing healthcare institutions around, Boston. So Mass General, Brigham, Women's Hospital, and actually connect with a bunch of physicians, most of whom were Harvard professors at some point in their career or currently, and shadow them around on their day-to-day, and like in the emergency rooms and sometimes in their global health incubator, things like that. So I really got a great perspective of what it means to do healthcare with kind of more from the medical perspective, and they kind of did allow me to better understand with an MBA skill set where we could best contribute. So that was really helpful for even my career decision.
Rebecca or Layla, any professors that you've had that particularly stand out to you?
Oh, for sure. our lead, Kaylee and I were in the same section, but my lead professor from last year, Joshua Margolis, was fantastic. Just a career academic, very, very knowledgeable about all of the different topics that we were discussing, and really had a great way of mastering the classroom such that we were almost trained to like speak to each other. I think that's one of the unique transitions for coming into the case method is you think that based on how you were, socialized in school is if there's a question asked, you respond directly to the professor or to the teacher. And in this environment, it's really supposed to be training you to have a conversation with each other. But I say that to say he was, very good at managing those dynamics and was also very open to connecting with all of us outside of the classroom as well. He's currently my advisor for an independent project that I'm working on, and has also given a lot of career advice to me as well. So it's just one example. I think the faculty here are super dedicated and very, very open to building relationships with students and helping us not just in terms of our academic pursuits, but professionally as well.
One thing just to add to that that was really neat is this professor came in because our original professor was Larry Culp, who's now the CEO of General Electric. And he came into class and said he's sorry he can't, teach us any longer because he has to go be the CEO of GE. So it was pretty interesting. I think, these things happen at HBS once in a while, but he stayed very connected to our class, and then several of our section mates ended up actually working for GE this summer.
Yeah, that's great. I didn't add, when we were talking about sort of the courses and the academic side, we didn't really talk about independent studies. Can you just give an example of your independent study and maybe tell a little bit about what that is?
Sure. So independent projects are things that you can do in the EC year, your second year here at HBS. And so what that means is you would essentially put together a proposal to work on a project in place of a class. It can either count for like a full class for the entire semester or half of a class for like a quarter of the time, if that's more appropriate for what you're studying. In my case, I am actually working on an independent project that is sort of company sponsored. So there are a few different ways that IPs are set up. One is you can come up with the idea yourself. Another is a faculty member could ask a student to work with them on something, for example, writing a case. And the third is companies often come to HBS and ask to work with students on specific projects or deliverables for their organization. So right now I'm working with the CEO of an executive search firm on a study on women chief executives in the US. And so what we're looking at is their trajectories, essentially, to identify common themes that have enabled them to be successful on that path. So for example, looking at questions like, what was the composition of the board at the time of their appointment, and asking questions around, are there any implications for the representation of more women on boards at the time of the appointment in the CEO succession process, looking at whether or not they were an internal or external candidate, and getting a little bit into the details on different obstacles that they've might have experienced. So I'm really enjoying it. I'm learning a lot, and part of the experience also allows me to kind of talk to some of these women and learn from them myself. So it's been really fun. And there are multiple other ways to do IPs. Some of my peers are working on business plans for startups that they've always been interested in pursuing, and are using their IP credits to pursue that. So it's really sort of up to you.
How did you get connected with the woman from the executive search company?
Yeah, so in one of the areas where there's something called the EC Toolkit, where we select our classes for the upcoming year. This is something that you do at the end of your first year. There's a section on independent projects, and the companies that were interested, that have submitted proposals to the school, will have those opportunities posted in that place. And so it's sort of up to you as a student to reach out, and that's what I did. I reached out and said, hey, are you still looking for a student to work with? I think your proposal is interesting. Let's set up time to talk for 30 minutes and see if it's the right fit. And it ended up being right. And so that's kind of how we progressed from there.
That's great. Um, well, this next question was for you. What surprised you about HBS?
Oh, I guess what surprised me is how deep the connections would be with just the people you meet here and your section mates as well. So one example of that is we have a tradition here at HBS called My Takes. And so what that means is there's sort of little mini TED Talks that you can do about, different life experiences that you've had. And so after hearing a number of those different stories in my section, I was really inspired to share my own, and ended up building, really strong relationships with the people that, decided to come and hear my story. I never expected to share that part of myself with my peers here at HBS, but I'm super glad that I did. And I think it's one of the ways in which we create a culture where people feel like they can truly be authentic here, and share, multiple different parts of their identity. And that was something really special to be part of.
That's great. Did anything surprise either of the two of you?
Yeah, I agree completely. Just want to add, like for me, what surprised me was the how easy to connect with the faculty. I think you mentioned this a little bit more, but like for me, I just like sent emails. The next day, I had a response, having like a day to meet the professors. So I think this was very helpful for me in my career search and also to talk about my career goals. So this was something very impressive, and I'm really taking advantage of that.
Yeah, I think also just the amount of opportunities. I think every hour you're choosing in a good way between 2 or 3 things to do, from the moment you wake up till you go to bed, probably later than you anticipated. So it's an exciting chance, and you really want to come in with a set of priorities because there's just so many interesting opportunities that come up.
That's helpful. Thinking about those opportunities and spending time outside of the classroom, how do you each spend your time outside of classroom? Like, what are the clubs that you're involved with, or the things that are really important to you? And Layla, I'll start with you.
Okay. Last year, I got involved in a number of things outside of the classroom. But the biggest commitments, I think, were one, section leadership. So we hold elections in the section for different positions. I was the admissions rep for my section. So I worked directly with the admissions office on a number of different things, including class visits, webinars like this, different coffee chats for prospective students. I really enjoyed that, and I'm obviously still involved.
Yay. Thank you.
Another club that I was involved with last year and still am is the African American Student Union. And so I was involved with the annual conference that we host in the spring. And one of the things that I did for the conference was organize on a panel on business and politics. So there have been a number of different alumni that have gone into careers in government and public service. And so we sort of wanted a place to feature their stories, especially in light of a number of different political conversations that were happening now. So getting involved with different conferences is actually another great way to pursue your different recruiting pursuits, because in organizing those panels, you'll often get connected with different people in the industry that you might be interested in, and it's just kind of another way outside of the classroom to continue your professional interests while you're also working with a club on campus. But those are just 2 examples. I don't know if you guys have others.
Yeah, so last year I was the women representative for my section. So my job was first mediating some conversations about gender equality. So we talked a lot about when we have cases talking about gender. After that, I was like mediating some conversations and discussions. I'm still part of the Women Student Association. So now I'm the vice president of careers. So I spend my time organizing events to help promoting company events to connect with women. I'm also organizing a public speaking workshop to help also men and women to have better public speaking. I was also part of the marketing club, help with the conference. And here at HBS, I'm also taking the time to take care of my health. So I'm trying to regularly exercise and sleep a little bit more. Sometimes it's hard, but I'm still trying to have a healthier life than I think I used to have at work. I think it's like it's a moment in your life you can try to put yourself in your priority and think a little bit more about what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think, in addition to some of the organized groups, I on the side I like coach CrossFit. So I'm like you try to keep my health, and this was a fun way to kind of engage with my section mates and kind of keep a community of folks from I don't know all different sections. Because I think sometimes you really want to take these extracurricular opportunities to meet people outside of your section as well. And then I work a lot with CamTech, which is Mass General's Global Health Incubator through the Global Health Special Interest Group in the Healthcare Club. A lot of words in that title. But ultimately, we work on a variety of different hackathons in the area. So around the opioid epidemic, gun violence, and some kind of more broader global health issues, and try to help a bunch of different groups that have medical backgrounds, engineering backgrounds, think of things from a business lens and really put that into kind of a business plan perspective. It's been really interesting getting engaged in the Boston community that way.
Rebecca, you talked a little bit about the WSA, so I just want to ask you a little more about this because we got a lot of questions about WSA, obviously, on a women's webinar. So can you tell me a little bit more about the WSA, what it is, and maybe why you chose to focus your time on that?
Yeah, so WSA is our club for all the women on campus. So all the women on campus are part of the club. It's a club that's for free. They need to pay fees. Everyone is part. All the women are part of that, and we work in a lot of different fronts. So we work, as I said, in my case, I work with careers. So how we can help women succeed in their careers. We also have people working to improve women participation in cases. So make sure we have a good balance between male and female protagonists. We also try to create a good community on campus, make sure everyone feels included. So there's a lot of activities going on, and you can decide to be part of the board or not. People that are part of the board, they have more an active participation. And I joined the board because I think it's very important to talk about this topic and also to make friendships inside the board. It's like a smaller group inside the WSA, and we meet regularly. We have very nice conversations. So I joined also to create this network and have more impact on campus too.
Great. And Layla had mentioned the conferences, and the WSA has one of the biggest conferences, and everyone is welcome to come. You don't have to be a student for any of the conferences that we have, whether it's entrepreneurship, healthcare, social enterprise. So that's a great way. If you're close enough to visit, it's a great way to come see HBS and experience and actually learn something too while you're here. So Kaylee, you talked about kind of how many opportunities there are. Can you just describe what a typical day looks like, maybe for a student in their first year, and then you can compare it to a student in their second year?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the one unique aspect that Layla's kind of already touched on is the section. So your life revolves around your section in a great way during your first year. So typically you wake up and some people try to squeeze in a workout before, but then you have discussion group. And this is a great way, as I kind of mentioned before, about some of the academic reservations you might have, is you have an opportunity to speak about the cases you prepared the night before with a group of people who aren't in your section, and they all have very different backgrounds, and you can kind of test out some of your ideas and make sure that you're on the same page so you have more confidence when you speak in class. So that's what you do bright and early in the morning, and then you end up in class at 9. And then you have 2 to 3 classes a day with lunch, and normally all of your lunches will be booked with friends and section mates to get to know one another. And then after that, it is so dependent on the day, but often you'll have, different opportunities for career events, or very cool speakers come to campus. A lot of the protagonists that might have come for a case stay after to have different discussions or host different presentations. And then there are a ton of different, extracurricular activities, social activities. So your section will probably have some sort of themed event. So get your Halloween costumes all in one box. And then, if you have a partner, they're very included. So typically, if you want to spend time with your partner, it's not going to be a decision whether or not to go home and spend time with them, but they're very much included in the section and any activities going on.
That makes sense. Layla, did you have any challenges being a student at HBS, and how did you overcome them?
Yes. So I think we've talked a little bit about people who might feel anxious about coming here if you don't necessarily have like a quantitative background, and I certainly did not. Being here at HBS was my first time in a finance class, in an accounting class. And I think at the start of the semester, I was definitely very nervous about how to handle the academic rigor of the program. and relied heavily on student academic services, the tutoring that we have access to, which is amazing. It's totally free. And you can use as much of it as you want. And I definitely did. And so I think once I realized how many resources there were here that were available, it was, obviously made the process a lot easier to manage, and a lot less stressful, knowing that there were multiple different outlets for support, and not just academically, but also the mental health resources here at HBS are phenomenal. And so I know a number of different people who have taken advantage of those. I myself have taken advantage of that and have encouraged a lot of other people to seek, those resources as well. HBS really emphasizes wellness as a huge part of the experience, especially the RC experience, because it can become, very overwhelming at times, depending on what you're pursuing. But I think a combination of, finding the right resources on campus, definitely relying on friends and your section for support is a big part of navigating different anxieties that you might have, whether they be academic or social or otherwise. So that was kind of the challenge I experienced, and I think obviously made it out okay and leveraged the resources that I needed to. And I think it's a testament to the fact that you really can come here with any background and be successful.
We do a good job in
Mhm.
admissions. I interviewed Layla. So,
Yes.
so how have you guys thought about kind of your life after HBS and what you're going to do? And Rebecca, this is specifically for you. You said you did a little bit of brand management before school. Can you talk about how you found your summer internship and how you decided on, what you wanted to do after school?
So, as I said, I was a brand manager in Brazil, but it was a short experience. But I really loved my job during this year, and I came here sure that I wanted to do brand management. But then I started seeing all the opportunities and all the info sessions about different companies and industries. So I said, I'm going to explore and see what's around. And I went to a lot of events. It was like very interesting, but I confirmed I still wanted to do consumer products. And but I was not clear for me, like which exactly, like if it's going to be food or maybe consumer health. Then our careers team here helped me a lot. So I had a career coach, and she helped me building my target company list. She helped me preparing for my interviews, my cover letter. So I think for me it was very overwhelming. Recruiting in the US was the first time I was doing that, and it's a little bit different from recruiting in Brazil. But I think I had all the support to like prepare my resume and everything, and also for the interviews, coming from another country and having to prove that I can work in a consumer related industry here was also challenging. But again, the marketing club helped me, the career coaches helped me, and I think in the end I was successful. I got a summer job at General Mills, and I'm going back there after my MBA here.
Nice. That's great. Can you talk a little bit more about you talked about the career coach. How did you find the career coach?
Yeah, so first they matched me with a career coach that was specific for consumer products. But I also looked at this like a list of all the career coaches available, and I also find another one that was a little bit more close to what I was looking for. And it's for free. And I think I had like 6 meetings with her, and she was really like my partner during this whole process. Like we talked about not only like the process of getting recruited, but also about my long-term goals, my life goals, and like how I'm going to deal like having also a partner here and finding a job in the US and everything. So I think it was like a holistic approach to recruiting that was very, very helpful, and also helped me managing all this stress that recruiting is about.
And as an alum, you have access to career coaches as well. So I think as an alum, you get 3 sessions with a coach every year, which is pretty great. So HBS sort of sticks with you for life, and there are all sorts of resources that are also available for alums in terms of thinking about, being on boards or, how to get to the next level. They have all sorts of podcasts, webinars, and things like that, and keep you pretty connected. And then around the reunions, which happen, the first year after HBS, and every 5 years, there's a lot of programming that sort of helps with your career as you think about that. Layla, did you use the alumni network as you went about your job search for the summer?
Definitely. I spent a lot of time on the phone last year and had a lot of like in-person coffee chats as well. But connecting with alumni is a really great way to, kind of explore different industries or career opportunities that you're considering. And one of the reasons why that was important to me is because sometimes it's helpful to get a perspective of someone who's been in that role or in that industry for a longer period of time, versus your section mates who may have only worked there at a certain level, or other peers you meet that have kind of like limited experience. It's still helpful to see what the most near term trajectory might look like in that job. But it's also helpful to hear from alums who have been in their roles for a while, that have navigated different challenges, that have sort of taken more of a winding path. And then in terms of getting connected to those people, there are a number of different ways. I know Jessica introduced me to a couple of folks herself, and it also got connected to alumni that some of my section mates had relationships with, or that I met through different events that happened on campus. A lot of the people who come back from different companies to recruit on campus are actually alumni themselves, and so getting connected with those people is often a good way of using an introduction to get another introduction. And in every conversation that I had when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to pursue, I would always ask, like, well, who else would you recommend me speaking with? And usually that person was also an alum who would, and it kind of like branches out from there. So if you really want to like lean into leveraging alumni for your career search, they can be super, super helpful. And they really, they're invested. They understand what this experience is like, and they have every reason to help you. So it's been pretty incredible to build relationships that way.
Great. So we're almost done with this portion, but one parting question. Do you guys have any advice for the people who are just about to embark on this process? And Kaylee, I'll start with you.
I think one of my major takeaways was how important it is to customize your experience. So you'll be offered so many different opportunities. We've all kind of mentioned different aspects of the program here, but you really have to think about what's important to you. I think it's very easy to kind of go, because there are so many opportunities, to stick to things that people are all talking about. For example, like everyone wants to go to consulting or something like that, but really think about what matters to you and why. And your HBS email address when you're here does allow you access to so many different things, even outside of the alumni network. So really utilizing that to, explore things you're interested in, and just taking ownership of customizing the process for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, here at HBS, we're very encouraged to do a lot of reflections and stop and think about what we want, very similar to what you said. So I would recommend using the essay and all this admission process to like stop and reflect about yourself and start really, very similar to us, like thinking what you want. And it's like a very special moment for you. And also in the post-interview reflection, really reflect about your interview. I think for me, like I left the interview, I was like very nervous, and I just wrote it just after the interview, and I reread it, and it was like so interesting to like go back and see how deep I was. And I was kind of afraid, should I share that much? But I think it was worth it, because here we learned how it's important to share and reflect.
Yeah, the best piece of advice that I got when I was going through this process is to be vulnerable. And I think that advice carries through to your experience here as well. And that's being vulnerable in terms of what your needs are, where you need support, also in terms of how you're building relationships with people. This is a place where, you were selected to be here for a reason. And so it's important to let that part of you shine and to let other people see, and to get to know that part of you. So being vulnerable, being authentic throughout the process and while you're here is what I would say.
Those are all good pieces of advice. So I will add one other piece of advice, which is you should apply because a lot of people think about it and maybe think about making a decision before they have a decision to make, or they say, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm not this enough, or I'm not whatever enough. And that's not true. And we're always looking for, more women to apply to HBS, more women to come to HBS. That's why we do things like this. If you have questions, feel free to email us. We have somebody who monitors this email address, admissions@hbs.edu. We'll have these webinars the first Wednesday of the month for the next couple of months. If you want to meet other female students who are here at HBS, and there are a lot of opportunities to engage with, whether you're interested in entrepreneurship, whether you're interested in social enterprise, retail, we have all different opportunities free to meet students who are involved in those things. So keep your eye on our events website, and I hope that I get to meet you in person soon. Thanks for spending your afternoon with us.